March 1967. Tensions between the Soviet Union and the United States over the fate of Vietnam are reaching a fever pitch. Just 5 years earlier, the two superpowers nearly engaged in a world-ending nuclear war, with the bravery of one Soviet submariner saving the planet from nuclear fire after defying orders to launch a nuclear attack on a U.S. carrier strike group. Every day, millions of American and Soviet citizens go to bed wondering if this will be their last night on Earth. Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana contains one of the U.S.'s largest active missile fields. Its Minuteman missiles stand poised and ready to be fired within minutes of receiving an order from the President of the United States or his successor down the chain of command in the event of a Soviet first strike. Each Minuteman can deliver multiple nuclear warheads, acting together to bring devastation across hundreds of square miles of the most dense urban centers on the planet. For the first time in human history, man has the power to end all life on Earth. Out in the missile field, security patrols are responsible for dozens of acres of missile silos. Deep underground, Air Force launch officers from the 490th Strategic Missile Squadron live in environmentally sealed pods, where they can simultaneously control multiple missiles. Their only contact with the outside world is a direct line feeding into them, which will only be activated if it's time to bring about the apocalypse and to line up to the security personnel who patrol on top. Late at night, on approximately March 24th, the security officers notice something odd in the sky. Multiple bright lights have appeared high up in the sky, moving faster than any known aircraft. The lights make sudden and dramatic changes in speed and direction, abrupt enough to kill any living pilot. Various security patrols observe the bizarre phenomenon, but with the lights remaining high up in the sky, there's little concern about the installation's security. However, the flight security controller places a call to First Lieutenant Robert Salas, who's on alert duty inside the Minuteman silo, informing him of the lights. The security controller informs him that the lights do not appear to be aircraft due to their speed and maneuvers and the fact that they're producing no discernible noise. Salas thanks the controller for the report but thinks nothing more of it. Having not seen the lights himself, he figures it's a meteor shower or some other explainable phenomenon. Here at the Infographics Show, we're always striving to present complex information in a way that's both engaging and easy to understand. But what do you do when you have too many ideas running around in your head? How do you get them all organized? Well, we found a solution, and that's why we're happy to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, World Anvil. World Anvil is an all-in-one platform designed to support creators from all walks of life. Whether you're a writer, an artist, streamer, game designer, historian, or hobbyist, and their amazing tools help you create, organize, and present your creative endeavors with features like chronicles, timelines, and whiteboards. Are you an RPG game master? If so, World Anvil offers unparalleled support with over 45 systems including D&D 5e, or you can even create your own. Or maybe you're an RPG player, then you'll love their extensive character management system, which includes character sheets, journals, inventory management, and spellbooks. Or maybe you're a writer who wants to create your own entire universe. With 25 world-building article templates, you can create wiki-style presentations of your world, making it easier than ever to write, organize, and even publish your stories. But what I love most are the interactive maps, along with the Chronicles feature that allows you to plot events across time and space and truly bring your narrative to life. Ready to get started on forging your own world? Just use the link in the description and use the code INFOGRAPHICS to get 51% off any yearly subscription, which will give you access to all the amazing features World Anvil has to offer. Again, use the code INFOGRAPHICS to start exploring, creating, and sharing with World Anvil right now. Topside, several miles away, the security controller and alarm operators are on duty when suddenly, through the windows of the security control facility, comes a bright red glow. The men are alarmed and rush to the windows, thinking there must be a fire, or worse, this is the dawning red glow of a nuclear first strike. As an active missile field, every man knows that this is the place where the Soviets will strike first. But there's no shockwave or the roar of an explosion. Instead, as the men reach the window, they're astonished to witness a massive object, approximately 30 to 40 feet in diameter, hovering directly over the installation's front gate. The entry controllers responsible for monitoring access into or out of the facility panically call the Security Control Center. Security officers file out and draw their weapons on the object. They're under strict orders to not allow any unauthorized entry into the facility, and none know if the red glowing object before them is some kind of secret Soviet craft. Yet the hovering object has not actually entered the facility, and it seems content to merely hover over the entry control center. None of the men wish to open fire, Confused and fearful of the capabilities of such an incredible craft, the security controller composes himself enough to panically call Lieutenant Salas, informing him of the object's presence. Salas asks for a description, but the brightness of the red light makes it impossible to see any of the craft's physical structure. The security controller abruptly cuts off the call as one of the patrolmen shouts out in pain outside. Deep in the underground launch control facility, Salas wakes up his commander from his designated rest period and informs him of the events up top. Suddenly, the commander's console begins to buzz with various alarms and flashing warning indicators. One by one, missiles on ready status begin to go offline, until nearly all 10 missiles that they're responsible for are no longer operational. The two launch themselves into a frenzy of checklists, troubleshooting the problem while their minds race with possibilities. Could this be some sort of Soviet first strike? It's impossible for the Soviets to have gained access to the missiles and shut them down physically. There's no outside electronic connection to the missiles themselves, and accessing them directly would require nearly a dozen teams of special forces acting simultaneously to blow nearly blast-proof silo doors open, all while evading the entire heavily armed force of the Air Force security on top. These men query the automatic fault system and receive back a message from each of the missiles indicating a guidance and control system failure, which should be physically impossible without directly accessing the very innards of the missiles themselves. Weapons of mass destruction, designed to be impossible to turn off and responsible for deterring a nuclear attack on the United States by being able to fire at a moment's notice, are now sitting inert in their silos. It's a catastrophic scenario of unimaginable scope and consequences. Placing a call to the wing and squadron command posts, Salas's commanders relay incredible news. Missiles from other flights have also gone down. America's nuclear shield is down. She's vulnerable to a devastating first strike, and if the Soviets were to catch wind of this, they might capitalize on the opportunity to permanently destroy what they perceive as the American threat to their own survival. However, it's not just the Soviets. Other worldly forces could now act against America, and she would be without her most powerful weapons to defend herself. Salas calls the security controller topside, who informs him that the bright red object has flown off and away from the installation. Salas commands him to dispatch security personnel to the affected silos immediately, and across the missile field, multiple security patrols speed toward the inert nuclear missiles. One of those patrols spots a glow in the night sky, and upon approaching their assigned silo, places a frantic call over the radio. A bright red glowing object similar to the one recently spotted over the entry control facility is hovering over the stricken missile silo. Upon approach of the security personnel, though, the object suddenly speeds away. But the missiles do not come back online. The United States Air Force is experiencing a quiet panic as dozens of alert nuclear missiles have been knocked offline by an unknown agent. At the height of the Cold War, this is the worst of all possible scenarios, a true nightmare for the men and women who have devoted their entire lives to defending the nation and the many other countries under America's nuclear umbrella from nuclear Armageddon. In her entire history, America has never faced a greater risk than this, nothing short of complete, helpless annihilation. The preceding was the account of Robert Salas, a former Minuteman launch officer on duty, when one of the most alarming UFO events in history occurred right here on American soil. After being relieved of duty the following day, Salas was debriefed by the 490th Squadron Commander, Colonel George Eldridge, along with an officer from the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. His commander informed him that the incident had not in any way been a part of an Air Force exercise and could offer no explanation. The AFOSI officer meanwhile informed Salas that the incident was being classified as secret, and that he was not to talk about it with anyone. However, despite an attempt to cover up the incident, decades later others came forward to confirm Salas's account. One of the first collaborators was Robert C. Jameson, who was at the time a first lieutenant assigned to the 341st Missile Maintenance Squadron at Malmstrom. He was responsible for bringing missiles back online for any number of faults, though he had never encountered an instance of so many missiles going offline simultaneously. Sometime after 10 p.m., Jameson received a phone call at home to report to the 341st Missile Maintenance Squadron operations hangar. Once there, and before being briefed, he overheard other maintenance personnel discussing the UFO sightings and the connection with the offline missiles. Upon arriving at job control, the rumors were confirmed, and Jameson was informed that security personnel had witnessed a UFO as the missiles went offline. Jameson realized that he was surprised when he and other maintenance personnel were not immediately dispatched to the missile field. Instead, all the maintenance teams were put on standby and directed to remain at the hangar as a precaution until all the UFO reports had ceased. This was likely done out of concern for the men's security, given the unknown nature of the unidentified objects. While waiting, Jameson reports heading to a temporary command post set up inside the hangar. There, he overheard a radio conversation involving a second UFO sighting, which security personnel had witnessed landing deep inside a ravine just outside the base. After 2 to 3 hours, the all-clear was sounded from the missile field, and the maintenance personnel were allowed to head to the affected silos. While on his way to the missile field, Jameson and other personnel witnessed a small group of Air Force vehicles parked at the top of a ravine just off the main road. Later, Jameson realized that he had seen the Air Force responding to the landed UFO that security personnel had called in earlier, and that civilians near Belt, Montana, would later report spotting. Jameson had received a special security briefing before departing to the field. Cautious of further UFO activity, his commander briefed him and the other maintenance personnel that if they were to witness a UFO while on the way to the missile field, they should immediately report it. However, if they encountered a UFO at the missile site, they were to enter the silo and seal it from inside immediately. Their security escort would remain outside and report on events via radio, in effect leaving them as a sacrificial lamb. This point was likely not lost on Air Force security. Though Jameson never saw a UFO himself, he confirms the flurry of activity and the rumors after Salas's experience. For 2 weeks after the event, all personnel received the same UFO briefing while on their way to the missile field and were under strict instructions to report all UFO sightings. Even more drastically, if they were approached by a UFO while performing maintenance on a missile, they were to take self-defensive measures immediately. In other words, they were to protect the exposed missile by opening fire on the UFO. Jameson recollects speaking with multiple people who were all on duty when the original event took place, who all confirmed the incident as told by Salas later. One security guard who was present told Jameson that he had originally seen 2 small red lights off on the horizon, only for them to begin speeding toward the missile site. The guard was so terrified by the event that he never finished his story and began to break down into tears. 2 weeks later, though, another UFO event took place on the opposite end of the massive installation. Just like last time, several missiles went down after the red glowing craft appeared. This time, though, the objects appeared during the daytime, though they had the same effect on the missiles. It seems, though, that these UFOs were interested in the Malmstrom missile field even before Robert Salas's experience in 1967. Just a year earlier, Patrick McDonough, who would retire as a Navy Intelligence Commander Master Chief, Southwest Region, and at the time was an Airman First Class in the Air Force, witnessed a similar UFO encounter. Per McDonough, he was sent to Malmstrom on a temporary assignment to assist in surveying the missile sites. This accurate survey data would be input into the missile's guidance system, allowing the missile to know exactly where it was being fired from, and could thus accurately track its course to its target on the other side of the planet. At the time, McDonough was working on the final 50 silos being built on base, and while conducting an astro-azimuth observation at night, he and his team witnessed a UFO speeding in from the north. The object abruptly stopped directly over the launch facility McDonough was working at, and he describes it as a disc shape with a diameter of approximately 30 to 50 feet. A series of dim lights seemed to outline the edges of the disc, while a bright white light emanated from its very center. The UFO hovered in place completely silently for approximately half a minute directly over the launch facility, at an altitude he estimates to be 300 feet. Then it suddenly sped off to the east at tremendous speed. McDonough and his team, alarmed at the event, immediately grabbed all their gear and jumped into their brand new Chevrolet truck. They sped off toward the town of Conrad, where they had been assigned temporary quarters. However, en route, the driver made a high-speed left turn at an unmarked T intersection, causing the tires on the truck's right side to blow out and the vehicle to flip onto its roof. Nobody was seriously injured, and the men made their way to a nearby farmhouse, where they called the local highway patrol for help. When the patrolman arrived, he confirmed the team's sighting, saying that he'd already had over 20 reports of individuals witnessing the same object they had. McDonough filed an incident report regarding the event, but never heard back, including no inquiry from the Air Force regarding the destruction of the brand new Chevrolet truck. Anyone who has ever been in the military knows how badly the Air Force must have wanted to keep things quiet if it didn't immediately pursue disciplinary action against the airmen for destroying a brand new truck. But the collaboration of UFO activity at Malmstrom's missile fields doesn't end there, because we have yet further confirmation of the events of that night from an additional witness. Dwight C. Arneson retired from the Air Force in 1986 as a lieutenant colonel, but in 1967 he was officer in charge of the communications center at Malmstrom AFB and the top secret control officer. Some of his classified duties include dispatching the nuclear launch authentication codes that all missile crews needed to launch their missiles. While at the communications center, he was present for a UFO-related message from the missile field. In the message, Arneson read that a hovering UFO had been witnessed near the missile silos and had been witnessed by crews coming off and on duty. The message described the object as a round, circular object, and its proximity caused all the missiles to be shut down. Years later, he would go to work for the Boeing Corporation after retiring from the military. While there, he met Robert Kaminsky, who had been assigned to investigate the shutdown of the Malmstrom missiles. Since Boeing is the primary contractor on the Minuteman missile, the company dispatched its own personnel to investigate the shutdown for potential causes of failure. Kaminsky noted that the Boeing team was never able to discover a cause for the unexplained shutdown and confirmed that UFOs had been witnessed by ground personnel at the time of the shutdowns, which happened at least twice in that same month. The Malmstrom incident has become one of the best documented and verifiable events in military UFO history, rivaling the more modern Nimitz sightings. But this was not the only incident involving UFOs and nuclear weapons, indicating that someone or something is taking a keen interest in the most powerful weapons man has ever developed. The United States is not alone in its connection between UFOs and nuclear sites. The phenomenon is a global one. Recently, the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, one of the several official investigations into the UAP phenomenon, released a hotspot map showing where most of the reported UFO events they investigated had occurred. This map is not an authoritative map of all UFO activity worldwide. It's simply a plot of UFO events investigated by AARO. Given the presence of U.S. ships, troops, and aircraft worldwide, it's no surprise that the Middle East, Korea, and the East China Sea are UFO hotspots. Yet the connection between nuclear power and nuclear weapons is truly global, and it affects every country that has harnessed the atom for its own use. After the 2011 Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster, hundreds of witnesses came forward claiming to have witnessed UFO activity both before and after the event. After the disaster, numerous brightly lit objects were witnessed over the Fukushima plant itself, with some photos of the phenomenon being posted online. The Japanese government has been extremely conservative in its approach to UFOs, firmly stating that no such things exist, despite the numerous public hearings on the phenomenon in the United States. As a highly conservative society, though, it's little surprise that many would opt to remain silent about a topic that continues to be ridiculed publicly, despite a wealth of evidence. And yet, despite the refusal to acknowledge the mounting evidence, the phenomenon continues to propagate around the world and has done so for decades. In March of this year, a spate of UFO sightings near the Kudankulam nuclear power plant caused some alarm. A police investigator managed to film the phenomenon, which appeared as a brightly glowing disc-like object even during the daytime hours. This isn't the first time that UFOs have appeared over the plant, though, with the summer of 2023 being prime time for UFO activity. Over the summer, over a dozen different UFO events were reported, prompting many to demand the government begin to take the phenomenon more seriously. The Kudankulam power plant is notorious for corruption charges and lacks maintenance and safety standards. The plant has experienced frequent shutdowns and in 2019 suffered a massive cyber attack. Locals have campaigned fiercely against the plant, though to date there has been no safety incident at the plant. China is a land of tightly held secrets, and it's difficult to get any information about UFO-related incidents at their nuclear facilities. CCP censorship is swift to block and remove any unapproved subjects from Chinese social media, and its total power over national media makes independent journalism all but impossible. However, on July 7, 2010, a UFO spotted over Shaoshan Airport forced the rerouting of multiple flights. The object was spotted at around 8:40 p.m. and forced all departing aircraft to be grounded until it disappeared. Meanwhile, residents in Hangzhou posted photos online of a UFO spotted across the city just days earlier. Described as an object bathed in golden light and leaving behind a comet-like tail, the UFO was also spotted an hour before it was detected over the airport. The Beijing Planetarium claimed that the witnesses simply saw an aircraft shining its strobe lamps. However, this does not account for the streak seen in the photograph captured, as the strobes do not flash fast enough, nor is the average smartphone camera shutter speed slow enough to create the streak effect. In 2023, a UFO was spotted over a nuclear power plant near St. Petersburg in Russia. The object was clocked to be moving at around 124 miles per hour at an altitude of approximately 33,000 feet. The Russian government dispelled UFO rumors by stating that the object was moving at the same speed as the wind, indicating it was being carried aloft and was likely unpowered, and was thus likely a large balloon of some kind. The same government representative reassured the people that Russia's air defenses remained on alert and ready, a blatant lie given Ukraine's tremendous success in bombing Russian refineries. Yet, rolling back the clock to the Cold War, we now know that the Soviet Union was regularly experiencing the UFO phenomenon and in fact was carrying out a massive two-pronged UFO investigation. The two-headed investigation was being conducted jointly by a civilian-led effort and a military effort. However, as the civilian team lacked the proper security clearances, they were not allowed to investigate UFO events that directly affected or were reported by the Soviet military. The military investigation, meanwhile, lasted for well over a decade, and its conclusions remain classified to this day. In 2022, though, the Russian Academy of Sciences began investigating the UAP phenomenon, mirroring a NASA effort that would begin shortly after. Roscosmos Director General Dmitry Rogozin stated that the investigation looked at both modern and historical data. 99.99% of all reports could be explained prosaically. However, he stressed that the final 0.01% defied explanation, and he could not rule out a non-human, non-natural cause. Rogozin stated that he'd been in contact with military pilots from the Soviet era who had witnessed UFOs, as well as his counterparts in NASA, stating that some at NASA agreed with him that there is the possibility that we are under, quote, external observation. We'll end with an account from one of our very own writers, who at the moment is cooperating with an FBI investigation into the UAP phenomenon and who spent several years working directly with nuclear weapons. The object appeared to be about the size of a large beach ball, glowing very bright white. It was hovering motionless directly over the top of the innermost fence, likely setting off the sensor that runs along the fence, resulting in the original alarm dispatch. The brightness of its glow made it impossible to make out any details about what might be producing the light. Still, strangest of all, the intense glow did not illuminate the area around it as you would expect, despite this being nighttime. This made me think that the light effect was perfectly directional to the observer, like a laser, and not a glow effect like we think of with a light bulb. However, given that there were numerous witnesses who all described the same thing, and some like myself from a considerable distance, this object would have needed perfect awareness of each and every witness and exactly when the witness was looking in its direction. Alternatively, the glowing was a psychological effect and not a physical one, or merely a projected image of some kind. Light as we understand it simply does not behave that way. As the responding patrol arrived, they initially slowed down in obvious alarm at witnessing the object. After relaying their observations over the radio, they crept forward with the vehicle, prompting the object to also move forward. The object matched the vehicle's speed perfectly to keep the same separation between itself and the patrol, and it seemed to follow the top of the fence line as if it were using it as a guiding rail, similar to a tram. The patrol then sped up to try to catch it, resulting in a 40 to 50 mile per hour chase along the perimeter, joined by 2 additional patrols. Upon reaching an area where the fence turned right, the object turned left and headed out into the desert instead. Again, while it was visibly glowing as it receded into the distance, it did not illuminate the desert around it. Now go check out U.S. Special Forces Confession, I Recovered Crashed UFOs, or click this other video instead.